Sweet. Well, Ben, I got to say, this is an absolute pleasure for me to have you on,
Thank you, dude.
especially like as someone who's like grew up in high school listening to you. So it's awesome that I get to actually chat with you and stuff. So, my first
Thank you.
question is more so just, with the name of the podcast, I named it Basement Kids because growing up, me and my friends, my bandmates, we always hung out in the basements, jammed in the basements. That was our hangout spot. I guess you growing up, where was your guys' hangout spot with your friends? Is that like basement, garage?
Yeah, that was my basement actually. So I grew up playing drums. I really wanted to play drums in fourth grade. I told my mom that that's the instrument I wanted to pursue. And, most parents, when their kids ask if they could play drums, are like, absolutely not any other instrument, because who wants a drum set in their house? The one bit of luck that I had is that I guess in like the 50s, our house in the basement, there was some like pirate radio station, or it wasn't like a real radio station, but I don't know the full story. But whoever lived there in the 50s kind of like soundproofed the walls. And
Oh,
so because of that, my mom was like, fine, you can play drums. Which I'm sure she regretted, because that little bit of soundproofing did like absolutely nothing when I was down there, like trying to play Green Day songs, like at full blast.
yeah.
So because of that, I started playing drums, and I had a band from fourth grade through high school, basically. And once or twice a week, everybody would come over to my mom's basement and we would jam out. And that was, the inception of my entire history being in a band, was in my mom's basement. So it's all about the basement. And,
Yeah.
absolutely for me, it was.
That's crazy. So drums was the first thing you learned, eh?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Interesting. So like
Um,
how long did you stick with that?
um, I was super into it from fourth grade until eighth grade. And I was playing with my best friends. I made my best friend Evan play bass, and I made my other friend Jeremiah play guitar, because I was like, we need those to form a band. And so from sixth to eighth grade, we didn't have a singer. We just played like half of Nirvana cover songs, and we always stopped when we got to the bridge, because no one ever like learned the bridge. And then in high school, we all went to a different school. We met this kid named Matt who played guitar and sang. So for all of high school, we played in a band, which we named Random Task after the Austin Powers bad guy that threw the shoe, the first one.
Nice.
Um, and so my high school experience from ninth to 12th grade was playing drums in Random Task, and playing like three, sometimes four times a weekend at every local show we could play, at every firehouse, VFW hall. Yeah, that was my life. And then once high school was over and all of us were going to different colleges, that's when I quit that band and had an idea to start Armor for Sleep. So it really, like, it's completely all about my drum playing, and that path led me to everything else. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, because I think that's cool because the first demo you did for Armor for Sleep, it was just you, right? Like you recorded everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
So in my band in Random Task, the guitar players would leave their guitars at my mom's house. And so during the week, I would pick them up, and I taught myself how to play guitar just because I was bored and hanging out in the basement. And then I started writing songs. And actually, senior year with Random Task, even though I was just the drummer, I really wanted us to do a full length and put it out. But there wasn't really a songwriter in the band. So I was like, just because I want to put out an album, I want to write the song. So I wound up writing like 9 of the 12 songs for the album that we recorded when we were seniors in high school. So kind of just like out of necessity, I started writing songs because I wanted to have a CD to like sell at shows. Um, so yeah, so that's kind of how it started. And so after writing that album, I had a bunch of leftover songs, and those were the first Armor for Sleep songs. So yeah, that 2-song demo was written when I was playing drums in Random Task, trying to fill out that Random Task album. So Armor for Sleep definitely came from the ashes of that.
Oh, that's cool. That's
Yeah,
great. So since the fourth grade, that's a long time that you've been like in a band, man.
yeah, yeah. It is. But it's also, so yeah, so like I was really young when I started Armor for Sleep, right? Like 16, 17 years old. And that's, the 2-song demo of Armor for Sleep is when I was 17. But because I'd been playing drums since fourth grade, and because we had been going to shows in New Jersey since seventh and eighth grade, this wasn't new to us. By the time we got to 17, we had like 4 years of going to shows, you know what I mean? At least. So that early start definitely helped us kind of like be ahead of our peers a little bit.
Yeah, no doubt. That's awesome. And then,
Yeah.
so when you're growing up, I guess if you're starting at that early of an age, like what bands were inspirations to you kind of when you started writing music and stuff?
Ooh, man. I mean, we went through so many different phases, and I went through so many different phases. So that's a loaded question. Like, are you talking like before I got into the scene or once I got into the scene? And
Ooh.
you know what I mean?
So it changed pretty drastically, like here and there then?
Yeah, like I think before, so eighth grade to me sticks out as like the year that we discovered shows. It's like the year that like we all stumbled into, the local like hardcore music. Honestly, there was a lot of ska back in the day in New Jersey. So it was like ska music and hardcore music and like skate punk. But before that, in the band that I was jamming at in my mom's garage, we were super into just like the alternative music that was on the radio. So at the time, it was Nirvana, Bush, like No Doubt, just like mid 90s rock music. That's kind of like how we got our chops playing. I
Yeah.
think the first cassette tape I got in fourth grade was the Black Album by Metallica. And I was like, I love this. I don't know what this
Yeah.
is. Then in eighth grade, we got into the scene and we got super into No Effects and Fat Records and No Use for a Name, Lagwagon, all of that kind of stuff. And we wanted to play really fast. So I started playing really fast on drums, and we all just wanted to be No Effects and that West Coast thing. So that was a couple years. And then I guess what now is known as emo, we started out of like kind of like punk rock bands in New Jersey. There were bands that were started by kids who were only a couple years older than us that were actually writing songs about like relationships and instead of writing songs about like drinking beer and like I don't know
Yeah.
like politics like no effects and all that stuff, these kids were singing about like girlfriends that broke their hearts. And as a 16, 15-year-old, that hit me harder than Lagwagon or whatever punk rock band. And so then there was a big shift in what we did. We started getting really into those bands. And being in New Jersey at that time was also very lucky for us because there were a bunch of young, amazing bands coming out in that world. For instance, two bands that I always cite that are, the biggest influences on at least me when I was starting Armor for Sleep are Thursday and Saves the Day. Those are two bands from New Jersey. Saves the Day we're picking up from what Lifetime did. And we're doing this very aggressive but emotional pop punk. And then Thursday, on the other side of things, we're kind of digging into more of like the screamier, darker, poetic stuff. And like I loved both of those things very much. I loved the fast pop punk, emotional stuff, but I also loved the super dark, and that's when Jeff from Thursday had like black hair. He looked like Dennis from Refused, so like Armor for Sleep, I was trying to do an exact amalgamation of like those two bands. Because
Oh,
that was when it was bubbling over in New Jersey at that time. So that
that's
was huge for me.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, it's funny how when the emo scene started, especially like I would say Armor for Sleep is one of those bands that sticks out to me as like one of the early emo bands that I first
Yeah.
discovered, and especially with the lyrics you wrote. It's like you
Yeah.
said in high school, you hear these lyrics and you're like, "Oh my God, I can totally relate to this." It's
Yeah.
it's like my story right now.
It's always so interesting to me, and I know this is just kind of the way of the world, but like I know what bands those were to me that like when I like for instance when I heard Saves the Day, that like changed my life. So like if somebody associates like early Armor for Sleep, like the fact that that did it for them, that's just like funny to me because from my perspective, I was just trying to emulate the
Yeah.
other bands that were affecting me so much. I almost want to be like, no, don't consider us in the mix, you know what I mean? Because like but it's like anything else, it's like time and place for those bands.
Yeah, for sure. And like when you started to write lyrics, like I guess more so with like the whole emo scene and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
was it were you kind of just like you said emulating it, or were you really drawing from like a lot of stuff that was going on in your life too?
Yeah, so I have thought about that. So I think when emo came around, a lot of people grabbed onto that aesthetic. Maybe they came from different pop punk bands where it was cool to, sing about other things. But then when emo became the flavor of the week, they kind of like altered their lyrics to fit into that. I think one of the things that is fortuitous for me is that that was always my perspective when writing poetry or writing, anything adjacent to lyrics. Like so I, aside from playing drums and being in these bands, I was also a very into creative writing and English in school. And I was in AP English. When I went to college, I was in the honors English program. So like to me,
Oh,
um, and literature is a big part of my family. My mom worked for a big book publishing company in New York City, so I was always around books and had a love for books. So writing and that kind of that literary thing was always a part of me. So I think there was just a bit of coincidence when emo music, like early emo music, became popular. That's just already how I thought about the world. And like that was already my perspective on everything, and kind of this introspective songs and darker songs, sad songs always spoke to me. So like when those bands started becoming popular, I didn't have to contort myself to like fall in line with that. I was almost like, oh my God, this is an eclipse. This is what I've always been wanting to find. And it just so happened that like this was the music that was like unfurling itself. And all of my friends and people that I looked up to were starting these bands in that flavor. And I was like, that's me. Like, this is what I've been doing since before I could even play guitar, So that was a bit of good luck. And, I know other bands that were just fans of that scene and tried to emulate it. And I think they got into trouble after a certain point when like, if you're just trying something that doesn't really fit your personality, after a while, it's going to fall off a little bit. Like the mask is going to slip, but that's why it's funny. Like whenever it's been a minute since like we've done an Armor for Sleep song, when I write and when we put out an Armor for Sleep song, people are like, wow, that sounds just like Armor for Sleep. And I'm like, because that's literally what comes out. Like, I don't have to like put on, a cape and like put on a suit. That's literally what comes out when I write stuff, for better or worse. You know what I mean? So
yeah, totally. Because it's so true. People will say that, eh? Like, oh, it's totally Armor for Sleep for sure.
Yeah.
Like you have your signature sound and everything, which is awesome.
Yeah, it just comes out.
Yeah, but I think like you're saying, being authentic is important, right? Like being yourself. Because I think like the early years when you're in a band, like you said, you're drawing inspiration, you're trying to copy into your own way somewhat. But then there is a point where you do start to find out who you are, what your thing is, and then like you just gotta choose to run with that and kind of evolve off that, right?
Yeah, and you just get into trouble if you try and be someone that you're not.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, I mean, the biggest way you get into trouble is that people and fans, listeners, they can sense that in a second if you're not being genuine. If you're trying to like do what the cool thing is and it's not really coming from a real place, like fans will sniff that out immediately. It just doesn't work. I know Rick Rubin talks about it a lot. Like you need to write for you, and like that doesn't mean to like give the middle finger to the fans, but it just means that what I take from it is that you never know like what's going to go viral or what's going to appeal to the most people. So you can never try and write a song based on like, what do I think people will like? But what you certainly can do is write what resonates with you. And every now and again, that might line up with what people relate to as well. But certainly you're messing up if you don't write what resonates with you, and I've learned that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. And I'm curious, like, you think when you're writing the songs, you're like, oh, yeah, that's an awesome song. Or maybe you're not as psyched for certain ones. Was there an Armor for Sleep song that say like, you guys were like, oh yeah, it's a good song, and then it just ended up being maybe like one of your most popular ones? Because I feel like that happens a lot where, the popular ones are ones you never thought would really take off.
Um, yeah, I mean, a big example is Car Underwater for us. I remember the first tour we started playing it on. It was with Midtown back in the day, because Gabe, the singer, was kind of managing us, so he took us out on tour. And we started playing that song, and it had like a different name to it. It was dumb of me to not call it Car Underwater from the beginning, but like we played it during sound check, and Gabe would be like, "Play the Car Underwater song, play the Car Underwater song," and I was like, "Why are you calling it that? That's so dumb because that's like what I sing in the chorus. But like, why would I ever just name the song that?" And you know, I think that was a song that I just thought would be another catalog song of ours. That obviously is one of our more memorable songs. So yeah, that's just an example of that, I guess.
Nice. And I got a question for that album too.
Mhm.
So when you decided to come up with like the concept for that, it's because I remember when that came out, I learned what the concept was, like the whole thing behind the album, and I thought that was such an awesome idea. But that seems like it would be a daunting thing to take on too. To make sure it flows right, like you're telling this whole story basically. Like what made you like was it hard when you were recording it to kind of or writing the songs to kind of piece it together in the way you wanted it to?
Um, you know, what's funny is if I had known that for instance, that 20 years later we'd be doing a 20-year anniversary tour, if I had known that it would have had that kind of impact, I probably would have been a little bit more stressed out, like you're saying.
Okay.
But at the time, the vibes were just so different about our band and so different about everything going on that it was more like, I want to do something really cool. I told the producer about it. I didn't even really tell the rest of my band about it. It wasn't like that big of a deal. You know what I mean? And like, yeah, then I was like, okay, I could really like tie this thing together. And then once we started going in with Machine, who was the producer, he was like, I really want to help like tie this whole thing together. Whoa, why did that just come out?
Zoom.
Haunted. Oh my God. Um, so so yeah, so then when the artwork started coming together, then I was like, okay, I could tie up this. So to answer your question, I think it kind of happened gradually. And then at the end of it, it was like, oh wow, this is really a cohesive thing. But I think after the fact, it seems more of a way more intentional. It was intentional, but because it was such a slow process with different pieces, building on top of it, it seems like it way more daunting than it actually was. It was actually really fun to do.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it was such a cool concept. And then even it's so funny with it being 20-year anniversary, which is
Yeah,
wild to me. I can't believe it's
yeah,
been 20 years. But
crazy.
the fact that like you're going on tour with Boys Night Out too,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
another great concept album, Trainwreck. It's
yep,
just like, oh, this is like the perfect tour.
yeah, yeah. And we toured with Boys Night Out back in the day. Actually, what's funny is I think our first headlining tour ever we took Boys Night Out on.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
and actually, funny enough, the guy who produced What to Do When You're Dead, the concept album for us, also produced Trainwreck. I forget which was first, but it was definitely like within a year of each other. Those albums were recorded.
Yeah.
So we've definitely had a connection with Boys Night Out, as I like to say, and we're stoked to hit the road with them again. I've been talking to Connor a lot, and
Nice.
yeah, just can't wait.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun, man. I'm so
Yeah.
excited for that. So is it just the album in its entirety, or are you gonna sprinkle in some other songs too?
Well, the album in its entirety is only like 43 minutes or something, and we're definitely going to play for longer than that. I think we're going to play almost like double that length. So we're going to do the album in an interesting way, and then we're also going to play other songs. When we released the album a few years ago, we put out some bonus songs with the album, so we're definitely going to hit B-sides from that album, some songs that we released around it. We have some fun surprises about the album and like how we're incorporating our live show into it. And then, yeah, and then we're going to play, we have time to play, a handful of other songs that I think our fans are going to dig. So it's going to be really cool. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for a lot of aspects of it. I feel like we're really trying to like bring people back into that world again for a night.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a lot of fun.
I think the timing's perfect too, because I feel like, kind of when, say, like when you guys went on hiatus there, there was a long time of just, it seemed like the scene kind of hibernated for a bit.
Yeah.
And now it's just coming back with like, revenge in a way. It's just all these festivals, like it's nostalgia, right?
Yeah.
Nostalgia is like at an all-time high. So this tour too is, I'm sure people are dying to go to this show.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's going to be awesome. And like, we've really like are leaning into, like because of social media, just because of the internet, there's something so cool about a live show. Like, yeah, people can record it on their phones and like post clips to YouTube, but like, unless you're there, you don't experience it. So like, I'm really into like, so we're printing like posters for this tour and like merch and like, I'm really into this idea of only doing things like once, like for the tour that we're on. So like you can you'll only be able to like buy the posters and the merch, which we're making really cool and super high quality, like at the show. And then like, that's it. You know what I mean? And like the stuff that we're doing on this tour, we're just doing on this tour and like, that's it. And, I guess some fans who can't be at the shows are like, oh, can I order this for later? And like might be upset about it. But at the same time, I think it is like an encouraging factor to get people to come out to shows and just, have that thing that you need to be at, which I think is like kind of gone in the world aside from like live music,
Yeah, totally. It's not the same like it used to be. I like that idea because, yeah, it makes people want to come more. And then it's like you have something that's kind of value versus just the same like t-shirts over and over again.
Yeah.
Right. I love that. That's a great idea, man.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And then, so when you guys kind of took a break and then came back, I'm kind of curious within the span of that, did you always have intentions of kind of coming back for the like more Armor for Sleep stuff, or was it just you weren't too sure what was going to happen within that time frame?
I would say not too sure. Probably leaning more towards thinking it would never happen again, to be honest.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah. Okay. And that was a mistake on my part. I think, ever since the band pretty much became inactive in like 2009, I think I had like a bitter taste in my mouth about the whole experience. And I let negative thoughts about what happened with the band kind of take over from letting me to like go back to that place. And man, honestly, like, so not to get too deep into it, but like I went through a pretty bad breakup in 2020. It was actually a divorce, right? So like my entire life fell apart, and we were planning on getting the band back together before that anyway. But that was one of those moments in my life where you kind of take stock in everything important, and you kind of think, maybe it's because I was just in this relationship for a decade of my life that didn't work out. And it was like, you start thinking, what am I spending my time on? Like I have limited time on this planet, right? Like I just watched 10 years tick away with the wrong person. I don't know. I felt a similar thing starting Armor for Sleep in 2001, right on the heels of September 11th, honestly. Wow. Thinking about September 11th and my divorce are probably two big chapters in my life. But like after that, was another one of those moments like, what am I doing with my life? And I feel like a lot of other people around that time had the same thoughts. So yeah, going through, that breakup of mine, I started thinking a lot about my life, and I started realizing how, how much I missed the band and expressing myself through the songs. And I had kind of blocked out a lot of the noise from the band. And that meant that I blocked out a lot of the fan noise about how much Armor for Sleep meant to them over the years. And so like, kind of like opening my eyes at that point in my life, realizing how important it still was to so many people and how I felt that it had been missing in my life, I was like, fuck, I got to do this again. So
Yeah.
so right after that, the thing that kicked it off for me was, I called the other guys in the band. I was living in California. They were in New Jersey. I was like, I wrote a new album. It's called The Rain Museum. I have to record it. I'm sorry. It's going to pretty much just be me because this was during COVID. And they were like, cool, that's, do it. So from that point on, it's kind of been all go on the band.
Nice, man. No, I remember now. How was the reception when you kind of were like, oh, Armor for Sleep's coming back? It must have been awesome. Everyone must have loved it.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, it was just a very cool feeling to know that we still have so many fans who care about us, and well, not who care about us. That sounds weird because I don't think we are part of the equation. I guess it's just fans who have listened to the band and still think the band is cool.
Yeah.
It's cool. It's surreal. It's a very, very surreal feeling, to be honest. I still kind of don't believe that it's real, but I accept that people say it is. So
Yeah, and so you also you were one of the bands that got to do like that Emo's Not Dead cruise, and you did When We Were Young Fest.
Yeah.
How were those experiences?
Just awesome. I love it. I have some friends in other bands who are kind of like that whole like emo revival thing. They think it's like a big shtick, and for me, I think it's great for everyone. I think it's great for the bands. It's great for the fans of the scene, and to get to go on the Emo's Not Dead cruise. The fact that Matt wanted to take us out and include us amongst all the other amazing bands that played is just unreal. And I mean, obviously, When We Were Young it's an honor to be included with so many other talented people. I look at them and I'm like, man, that band is awesome. That band is awesome. And I'm like, are we even worthy of come up here and doing our thing? But I know that we have our little thing that we do, and we've got our fans, and we've definitely made our mark. So like, it's cool. It's cool that we're included in that.
Yeah, for sure. And with the cruise, have you ever been on a cruise? Like, what was that like?
I had been on one cruise before.
Yeah. You didn't mind being like crammed on a ship with a bunch of people for like however many days?
So I don't know if like a cruise is my personal ideal vacation. If I had 2 weeks off, I think I would choose other vacations. Yeah, because it is a little restrictive. That being said, the Emo's Not Dead cruise is so much fun. And like, we did it the second year, and all we heard about after the first year was like how amazing it is for everyone, like fans and bands included. And it really is awesome. So, I mean, as weird as this is, if I were to do another cruise, I would want to go back on that cruise. Like, I'd rather do that than be on just like a cruise to Alaska or something,
Yeah. So Matt planned, he put it together pretty well then, eh?
Yeah.
Like that itself seems such a crazy idea.
Yeah. And like, one thing I wasn't sure about just before I knew the brand, I was like, okay, is this just a guy from outside the scene who's just like cashing in on the whole emo thing? But like, Matt has such a reverence for the bands. And also he was in a band that played Warped Tour, and he loves all the bands so much. He's not trying to like, just like steal the brand. Like, it's really cool that he is the ambassador for this whole thing. I'm not sure I would love it as much if it was anyone else, but he's just such a great ambassador for his brand.
Yeah, that's true, man. That's true. And yeah, even when you guys came back to the new songs, like we were saying before, everyone's like, oh yeah, this is Armor for Sleep. Yeah. It's just, it's good. It's awesome for the fans when you go away for so long, you come back and it's like, oh, these guys still got it. What I mean? And even like the brand new songs too that you released last year. Those are great songs, man.
Thank you, man. Yeah, we got some like I said about evaluating my life. I think I'm going to keep going for a while, and we're going to keep putting out new music, and I'm just going to try and be as creative as possible, because I think the best thing in the world is creating a piece of art that speaks to someone else. I think there's so much bullshit in this world. Like, what could I do? One thing, I could stop playing music and get a real job and make money behind a desk. What to me is infinitely more rewarding and probably pays a lot less, but it's okay, is writing a piece of song that speaks to someone's life, that could help them, that could help another human being's experience on this planet. Like the fact that I am possibly in the position where I could get to do that is like the craziest thing about my life, you know? So like, to me, you know, if I can keep doing that or keep trying to do that, is, you know, it's really like the coolest thing ever.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that because I'll say that it kind of leads me to my next question. But like, writing these songs that someone can, it helps these people. One song of yours that helped me through like a bad breakup in high school was Someone Else's Arms. Off of
Yeah.
like, man, the lyrics in that song,
Yeah.
like it really helped me get through a lot of shit.
That's awesome, man.
Just like, and it fucked with me too because that chorus is so like catchy, but
Yeah.
the lyrics are so like
Yeah.
they hit you hard.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's why I liked that song, is because it was super catchy and upbeat. But if you listen to the
Yeah,
lyrics, you're like, wait, how can I be singing this with a smile on my face? You
yeah,
know?
exactly.
Yeah, that was a cool song.
Oh, I love that song. I still listen to that song like all the time.
Thanks, man.
But yeah, have you had? I'm assuming you've probably had some cool like you know letters or messages from fans like saying, "Oh, this song really helped me out. You guys like got me through a really
Yeah.
hard time in my life,"
Yeah.
and like that itself must be rewarding, right?
Yeah. I mean, the most rewarding thing I could ever be a part of. Yeah. To get letters like that. And we do we do these like VIP hangouts at shows. Normally when we open for other bands after we play, I always say, "Hey, I'm gonna go right over to the t-shirts to hang out with you guys." So I'll go over to merch and I'll hang out with everyone. When we do headlining shows, we can't really do that because then like everyone from the show just clumps around merch, and it's like when people are trying to exit. So what we do is we sell VIP tickets. So if you pay a little bit more, you get to come to the show an hour before. But what that means is for an hour before, we hang out with everyone on the floor. Usually it's like 20 to 30 people. So we get to talk to everyone. So when that happens, a lot of people bring me like notes or sometimes like drawings that was like in something inspired by a song. And like, that's like the absolute best part of my day on tour. Like, yeah, it's unreal. I mean, I again, like I take myself out of the equation because I think it's bigger than me. It's bigger than anyone. It's like, the fact that this band has helped people in any way or inspired people to like do their own writing or their own drawing is like really, really cool, because I know how much those inspiring things meant to me, when I was either going through something rough or trying to articulate myself. So, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And it's funny. I seen you do a post there, and I feel like it's such a thing with bands too. But tattoos that people get of like
Yeah.
other bands and stuff, I'm assuming you've seen a lot of pretty interesting tattoos.
Yeah. And I mean, I actually have zero tattoos, but I feel like the art of tattoos has just skyrocketed over the past few years because I mean, I think we just posted one yesterday, but like some of these tattoos are so intricate and the shading is so realistic. It's just bonkers. But yeah, there have been a lot of tattoos. It makes me uncomfortable sometimes when some people come up to me with a Sharpie and they're like, "Can you sign my arm?" And I have to stop and say, "Why?" And they're like, "Because I want to get it tattooed." And like sometimes
Oh,
I'm like, in good conscience, I cannot let you get my name tattooed on your arm, especially with this fat ass Sharpie. It's gonna look so gross. But some people are like, "I insist." So, you
yeah.
know,
That's an
is
interesting
what
one. I totally forgot that people do that. They'll get the
yeah.
autograph and yeah. Oh, shit.
Yeah. And also like my penmanship is not good to start with, but writing a Sharpie on skin, it's not going to be pretty.
That's true. Yeah. Especially, yeah, depending if it's a good Sharpie or not, too.
Yeah. Yeah. And it never is. It's never a good
Never
Sharpie.
is. Oh,
Yeah.
that's so true. No, and yeah, besides like, because obviously you're busy with music, you do a lot with music. Is there anything that you do besides that, like another hobby that kind of just like, levels you out? Or is it just always music all the time?
Um, no. So I do have um, a hobby. I don't know if it's a hobby, but it's something I do every single day. I wake up at 9 a.m. and I go to the gym and I go do CrossFit. So I don't know if you know what CrossFit is. There are a lot of
Yeah.
mixed opinions about CrossFit, but I started doing that a long time ago. And when I do it, working out is makes you physically feel better. But I tell people this, and I mean it with all my heart. For me, I work out for the mental side of things. For me, waking up, making coffee, eating a little bit, and then going to do a really hard workout early in the day. When I come home, I feel accomplished. I feel a little bit grounded. I feel like ready to attack my day. And maybe it's because I have a certain personality type. I don't know what it is, but waking up and kind of feeling like directionless, maybe I feel a little anxious. Working out in the morning definitely levels me out. And, CrossFit is different than just going to the gym and working out by yourself, because you can kind of like record your progress. And for someone who is like hyper obsessed with what they get into, it can be pretty addictive to do that. But, it's got to be one of the best things I ever chose to spend my time on. So I don't know if that counts as a hobby. That's probably more in like the exercise realm of things, but
yeah, it's funny. People would say it's a lifestyle, I guess.
yeah. But
right,
yeah, but that's been like one of the most consistent things in my life for the past, honestly, like 13 years.
Yeah.
So yeah.
No, it's true. Yeah, I'm a big like advocate for working out and stuff too. If I go like, it sucks because anytime, like I've had moments where it's like I've gotten sick and then it's like obviously I can't do anything.
Yeah.
But I can tell, like you were saying, mentally, like if I go like a week without it, I can already tell like I'm out of it. It's not good. Like I do it for the exact same reason as you.
Yeah.
It just feels so good after.
Yes.
Yeah. No, it's beautiful, man.
Thanks,
yeah,
man.
you gotta, especially if you a band going on tour and stuff. Like I think it's important to stay like in shape.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't want to get up on stage and be like falling apart. And another thing is that I think I started going to CrossFit and finding that routine because like to go on tour is so stimulating every single night. You wake up, you get to the venue, fans are excited to talk to you. You play this crazy energetic set. It's like such a rush. And then the next day, the same exact thing. And then when tour's over, you wake up in your bed. It's like silent outside. No one's coming to like, ask for your autograph. There's no big show at the end of the day. And it can be a little jolting. And I think that's why a lot of musicians get in trouble when they're home. They look for that rush. And, a lot of people also, they're used to drinking 6 beers every night to get hyped up before playing. And they get home and they're like, man, I still want 6 beers or whatever. Yeah. So for me, getting home and being like, okay, 9 a.m., time to go to the gym. That's like the best, healthiest routine to fall into that, in a way it does replace like that rush of being on stage. It gives me, it helps me replace it in a healthy way. And I think I personally have gotten into trouble when I have not had such healthy things to do, aside from working out. So it's been good for me.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And like when you're on tour, because I just imagine like it must be late nights all the time, right? Like what time are you usually like maybe going to sleep?
Yeah, it's rough. I mean, so for this tour, so we're doing this tour in a Sprinter, which means we're driving it ourselves. We could have been on a bus, but we're on a bus all summer, and we're like, we miss the van. We want to go back to the van. So we're going back to the van. And yeah, so people might not know this, but we play a show. So because we're playing last, we're at the club. Our set probably finishes around 10:30, 11. We have to stay at the venue for another hour and a half to close up merch, pack the trailer, talk to the promoter, get paid. So we're not leaving the venue until 12 or 12:30. A lot of these drives we have on tour, we need to drive an hour and a half that night after we play. Yeah. Right? So played a whole show, sweaty as hell, smell like crap, haven't eaten, leave the club at 12:30. Let's say on a good night, we get to the hotel at 1:30, got to park at the hotel, check into the hotel. We're not in the rooms until 2 a.m. or so, lights out, 2:15. That's when I'm asleep, right? The next day, Lobby call, probably 8 a.m. to wake up, get to the lobby, drive 5 or 6 hours to the next show in order to be there for a 2 p.m. sound check. So yeah, it's brutal. You're not getting a lot of sleep. You're not getting nearly enough water or food, and it lasts for 35 days, and that's just tour. So yeah, it is kind of like, it's an assault on your body, on your mind, on your spirit. But the positive is, and this is how we view it, it's like a 30-day sprint, you know what I mean? And like the cool thing about where we are as a band is we're not on tour 10 months out of the year now. We tour for a month, and then we maybe take 4 or 5 months off and then go tour for a couple of weeks. So like all of us are like, yeah, this is going to be crazy. We're going to have long nights and barely any sleep, but it's going to be the best month ever, And when we come home, the first day we're home, we're still on the group text. We're like, man, we miss you guys. Like, we wish we were still on tour. So, it's the most brutal but most fun thing you could ever do. And we all love it, And there are tons of dudes and ladies who get to the point where they don't love it anymore, and that's when bands slow down. But like, we still love it. I'm going to be playing a set, getting behind the van and driving for an hour. Like, I will personally be driving because like, I love it. Like, I love doing this.
Nice, man. Yeah, I was gonna ask like if you notice like a big difference with like how you guys are on tour versus like 20 years ago. You know what I mean? Because it's just with age, obviously things change with your body and stuff. You're like, oh man, I'm way more tired than usual. But is it kind of just as soon as you're in that mood, you're in that mood?
Yeah, I feel like if anything, we're so much better than we used to be. So much more ready for it. So much more of like a professional mentality. Like just being little kids, 21, 22 years old, being in a band. I just remember thinking we were like snotty kids that could just like take a couple shots, get on stage, fuck with people, and like get off. And if something was going around wrong on stage, throw our equipment. Now it's like, yo, people have been waiting to see us for years, and like this is really important to them. And like we take that seriously. Like I take that seriously, how much this band means to people. That like I want to do well for them, and everyone else on stage takes this seriously, not to the point where we're like nervous, but to the point where like we respect it, and so we want to make the show really good. We want to be really prepared. We want to make it exciting for people. We want to, and I'm not mad at myself for being a 22-year-old idiot, but like that's just kind of, what we did back then, which is fine. But like, yeah, we just have more of a reverence for it now. And, I feel like, I'm honored to have the responsibility to like keep playing these songs and keep bringing this band forward for people.
No, that's awesome, man. Yeah, I think everyone's excited for that. And I wanted to ask you this too, like with social media, because, how it is now, it's like, man, you can spread like whatever you need to spread out to so many people these days with how like the algorithm is and everything versus how it was back in the day. But do you prefer how it is now, or do you prefer like the old school like MySpace days?
Yeah, so I guess to be totally honest, I love the MySpace days. There was no algorithm with MySpace. It was like
there wasn't.
No. Algorithm did not exist. That being said, we live in 2025. Social media is what it is. Algorithms do exist. And as much as I love the MySpace era and how things were on the internet when we were coming up, I'm not going to be one of those guys that's like, everything sucks now. Fuck it. I'm not going to, I think there is value in paying attention to the algorithm because ultimately we want to reach as many people as possible. That being said, I definitely have learned a lot through it, and it's been an interesting experience. So one of the things I learned is, and it's kind of similar to songwriting, right? Like you can study a song and you can say, hey, to make a huge pop song, this is what I have to do. And you can think you have it figured out. So you go and you try and engineer this thing. Ultimately, that's not going to make a good fucking pop song. What's going to make a good pop song is you write a good song. So similarly with algorithms, I feel like a lot of people get wound up in this game of like, I'm going to game the algorithm. If I do this, I'm going to go viral. And like, okay, sure, maybe for a couple people that happens, but like, it's almost like songwriting. If you're yourself online and you're putting yourself out there, you're going to find an audience, you know? And now I'm speaking more in terms of like people who are putting their bands out there, you know? And like, so to me, it is a little bit gross for me, my own personal taste. When I see a band out there that's clearly just trying to game the algorithm, you know, but like I love seeing bands that use social media just put themselves out there and they speak to their fans and their fans love it. So, you know, that's what we try to do. And like, yeah, you have to be aware of the algorithms a little bit, but like, I'm not going to fucking post at Wednesday at 10 a.m. because that's what percent, like, no, I don't care. I can't do that.
I don't care. Yeah.
Yeah. Too much.
Yeah. It'll take over your life if you do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's and like yeah, like obviously people have they succeeded with that kind of stuff, which good for them. But I'm the same with you. I'm just gonna do my thing.
Yeah.
But speaking of like with new artists, are there any new bands or artists that you're like pretty stoked on these days?
Yeah, I mean, I think I gravitate a lot. A lot of the newer music that I listen to is a lot. I think it's like heavier music a bunch. Like I've been listening to a lot of heavier music. So one of the bands that I've been really digging the past couple of years is Dayseeker. I know they started off much heavier and recently they've kind of changed. I'm a big fan of Rory and his songwriting and singing. I think they're a great band. I'm super into the new Spirit Box stuff. I think it's awesome. I think a big record a couple years ago or last year was the Sleep Token record. I think that's pretty cool. So yeah, so I love that stuff. I think the heavy music, the new bands coming up in the heavy scene, they really push the boundaries of their genre. I feel like a lot more than most genres of music. So, I'll put on like a metalcore Spotify playlist and just like, look at all the different bands that pop up and want to dig deeper with all of them.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's awesome. Yeah. Naming all those are all good bands, but yeah, you're listening heavy these days, eh?
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
It's funny how like, I don't know. Have you always just listened heavy or is it you just like go on and off with different stuff from time to time?
Yeah, growing up, I was super into a lot of the really early metalcore stuff. I remember this is probably dating me, but I loved bands like Coalesce and Converge and Shai Hulud, Poison the Well back in the day. And those bands really went on to influence, I think, a lot of like the more sceney kind of metalcore that came up in the mid 2000s. So I think I've always had a place in my heart for that. And, I also I like super heavy stuff. And then I also like the super wimpy, quiet stuff, like the Bon Ivers of the world. I love Pedro the Lion, super slow, moody stuff as well. So,
okay, nice. Yeah. Good spectrum.
Yeah.
Sweet, man. And before I let you go, I'm curious. I don't know if you can really say anything about it, but obviously with your tour, I'm sure everyone's excited about that. But is there any plans for new songs this year?
I think that this year is going to be a big year for us, and I think there definitely is going to be a lot of new music. Yeah, for sure.
Oh shit, sweet! I'm so excited.
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, I'm really excited too, and I feel like like I was saying earlier, it took me a little bit to like come back to this place, but I feel like I'm really happy to be back and to be creating again. So really excited about what we have coming up. Can't wait to talk about it. Probably we'll wait until once this tour is over, because this tour is just going to be celebrating What to Do When You're Dead. But I wouldn't be surprised if soon after that we start talking a little bit more about the future.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Well, excited to hear as soon as you announce something later on.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it, dude.
Yeah, man. And yeah, this was fun. It was fun getting to chat with you. And by all means, feel free to plug like the tour or whatever else you guys have going on.
Yeah. So what is today? Today is We were recording this on February 27th. We leave for tour next week. Ooh, a week from today. I should probably post about that. Speaking about algorithms, we're playing March 6th. Is that right? March 6th? That can't be a week from today. Is it? What is? Oh, yeah. You know why? Because February has 28 days in it. I was like, wait, how is a week from now, March 6th? Yeah, so a week from today, March 6th, we're playing Club Paradise in Boston. That's going to kick off our 20-year anniversary tour of What to Do When You're Dead. It goes until April 6th, basically playing every major market in the States. And come out to the show. If you don't have a ticket, it's going to be an awesome night. It's going to be a lot of fun. Hello Goodbye is going to be opening up the show, and they've been amazing for years. It's always a good time with them, and then Boys Night Out and us. So yeah, come out to the show. Say what's up.
Hell yeah. Everybody do it. If you were coming here to Edmonton, I'd be there for sure.
I know. And we have so many Canadian fans who want to see Boys Night Out. And I'm like, next time. Yeah.
Next time. Okay. Sweet. Yeah. I'll hold you to that.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Awesome, buddy. Well, once again, appreciate it. And
yeah, man. Glad to get this done.
I hope you and the rest of the guys have a blast on tour, man.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it, dude.
Awesome, buddy. Well, thanks again, and I hope you have a good one.
Yeah. Thanks, man.